Hello, this is Jeff with Northern Tail Sharpening. I get a lot of calls from folks that ask me, I've just took my blade apart and I can't get it back together. Well, I'm going to show you how to put a blade together. Because most often it's people that are not groomers, that don't know any better, so they'll take the blade apart thinking that that's how to clean it, and then it's a chore getting it back together because they just don't remember how they took it apart. You don't want to take blades apart to clean them because the tension is set right now. When you take it apart and clean it, you're gonna get the set back a little bit differently, and you're gonna change the tension on it. So two very important things: setback and tension. Setback is how the blade, how the cutter blade sets back on the comb blade. That's very important. If it's too far up, you're going to cut a dog. If it's too far back, you're going to cut higher than what the blade was meant to cut. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So there's a difference. So we're going to try to get that right for you. If we're going to let you, I'm going to show you how to get it right. First thing I would do is take the blade all apart. If you've taken the cutter out, let's say you just popped the cutter off, you thought you were going to clean the blade, and you thought that maybe just by pushing that cutter out you'd be able to do it, and it pops out, you might as well just take the blade apart, because that's the only way you're going to get it back in there correctly. And just set the blade out like this. This is the comb part, this is the cutter part, this is the blade slide. It goes on your spring. A lot of times the gunk is holding it in there, but if you pop that cutter out and it came out, just take it out, clean the gunk off of this, set it down like this. Here's the socket, and here's the screws. Pretty simple. There's just 6 parts to this blade. First thing we're going to do is do it in like a little production process here. We know the cutter goes on top of the blade, but we're going to oil this blade first. Since it's all apart, you might as well clean it. So I'm going to show you just how much oil to put on this blade. It ain't going to be much. You put one little drop right there. Anybody else tells you to put any more in there, don't listen to them. And put one on each side of this, and that's it for right now. Set that down, the comb part down, and take the cutter and just set it on top. You want to set it on top where, let me focus in here a little bit. You want to set that cutter on top so it's kind of lining up with the back rail. See the back rail here? You want to just kind of line it up with that back rail. It's going to be a little far apart up here in the front for right now, but we're going to adjust that later. But that's basically what you want to do, is just get that cutter on there like that. Now we're going to take the spring. That's this thing right here. If the blade slide came off, you want to stick that on. There's a little slot in that blade slide. I don't know if you can see that or not. That little slot there. You want to put that right on the spring, just like that. It'll push in. Just take your finger, just push it across like that. There it is. And you set that. Not yet, but we just want to test to see if it'll sit flat. There's no teeter-totter. Yes, it teeter-totters. So you can see one side's a little bit higher than the other. So what you want to do is you want to do that and just get them even across, because that produces tension down. That holds this cutter down. And if the tension isn't the same on both sides, one of them might start to drag or collect hair on one side. So yeah, that's not teeter-tottering anymore. So now we're going to put the socket in. You turn that spring over just like that. Take the socket, put the ears down like that. Stick the ears in the spring like that, and pull it back. Because when we turn this over and stick it down, we're going to have some springs coming from beneath the blade, and they're going to go through this spring, and they're going to screw right into these holes and hold the whole blade together. So Turn that over since it's not teeter-tottering anymore. Stick it right down on the blade like that. Here's the tough part. You know, it's not teeter-tottering anymore. Here's the tough part. You're going to take this blade and pick it up. Put it in your hand like that and stick your finger right there and flip the whole thing over. Your finger is going to be holding the blade together. And now you're going to take the screws and you're going to move that around, that whole assembly in the back. See how I move that around where that you can actually see through there and actually see the thread holes. Put the screw in there like that, just start screwing it in. Not tight, snug. Do the same thing with the other side. Now that you've got one side snug, you can actually move this whole assembly around. See that there? So I can see the threads in that socket. Screw that in. Not tight, but snug. So the blade's all together. You want to be able to move this back and forth. And if you can't move it back and forth like this, unsnug it. Just a little bit, just a tiny bit, just that much. Just so you can move this cutter around on here, because we're going to set the setback right now. And the setback should be about the thickness of a credit card. So how do you do that? You can set it up on the back rail like we did before, but you want to look down the blade. Look down the blade. See the teeth? That's why we want to be able to move this cutter around like that. This one here is just a little bit too tight. Still too tight. There we go. See how uniform that is going down there? If those blade teeth hang over the end, you will cut a dog. So they're about the distance of a credit card. You got to look at the very tips. When you're satisfied with that and they're set back a little bit, turn it over, crank it down. Make this snug. As you put it in my hand like this. These are Phillips screws, so they're not going to pop out. If you have a flathead screw, don't put it in the palm of your hand, because that screwdriver will pop off of there and take a chunk out of your hand. Alright. Push the cutter back and forth. Make sure that you still have the setback. And we do. It's set back enough. Push the cutter back and forth. Is it real tight or is it real loose? If it's a little bit tight, you're okay. If it's really forcibly tight, we got to loosen it up. I have a scale here. And this scale, I try to set that tension to 2.5 to 3 pounds. So what I did was I took a screwdriver and pushed that cutter aside, and I'll stick it on here wherever she pops. See that? It popped right about 2.5 to 3 pounds. Here's 3 pounds down here. So if it's popping anywhere in that green area, I marked myself a green area so I could see it in quickly, because I put blades together quickly. See where she popped? Right around the 3 mark. That's good. This is a 10 blade. If you do cats, you want to keep this 10 blade tension up toward the 3 pounds, because it'll work fine on a dog if it's down here at 2.5 or even 2 pounds, but on a cat, because of the fur, it'll just drag or it'll snag. So if you do a lot of cats, make sure your 10 blades are on the higher side of the tension range, around 3 pounds. That's it. That's basically how to put a blade together. It's not perfect, but for those that don't know how, and they've taken it apart by mistake, that's how you do it. This is Jeff, Northern Tail Sharpening.